Say that last part again.
I am the confidential secretary.
What does that mean? That sounds really awesome.
No, it's just a lot of words to mean I'm the right hand of the
Gotcha.
superintendent.
Okay, gotcha.
Sounds more
Gotcha.
professional than right-hand man, right?
I love that title.
Okay, either way.
I would tell everybody I know that was my
One
title.
or the other.
Confidential secretary. That sounds really cool. Thank you.
And I know you.
I already did.
Yeah.
So I'm Craig Northrup. I'm the region director for SchoolMessenger in New York, a couple of other states as well. Myself and Stephen are, well, we do this every year pretty much, and appreciate you all coming and those logging in online. And if you have any questions, do let us know. And if you like what you see today, feel free to reach out. Brenda, sorry.
I'm Renee Gill from Alexandria Central. I have her big long title as well, so.
You're a confidential secretary? We have two in the same room?
Yes, and they
Oh,
like
man.
to use it.
Worlds collide. That's awesome. Very cool.
I'm Chris Clancy from Canastota.
Awesome. And I'm Stephen Anderson. So my big fancy title is not as cool as all of yours. I'm the National Director of Solutions Engineering for Intrado Life and Safety Notifications. I think that's what it is now. It just means nerd. So I work primarily on the enablement side of our products, talking to customers about what we do and how we do it better than anybody else. And I do that for education, healthcare, and utilities now. But my love is education because I was a teacher. I taught for 13 years. I was my master's is in instructional technology and blended learning. I was a technology director. I'm from North Carolina. So, but an interesting thing is I have a personal connection to actually right here, my family, my mother and my family live, well, my mother doesn't live there anymore, but my family lives in Remsen. So I've spent many, many summers here in this area. So I think it's beautiful and just love it here. So I appreciate everybody here and everybody online. I wish we could say hello to everybody, but for taking the time, we're going to talk about a lot of stuff today. And you know, we're a small group online. It's this is for you all. I have tons of things that I can talk about. Obviously, I've got tons of stuff here that I can talk about. This is only half the list. There's a couple things that I do want to make sure that we talk about, but certainly if you have questions or you need to know something or how to do something, or we want to make sure that everybody has the opportunity to walk away with questions answered. If you've heard something or you need more information, don't hesitate. You know, I have two daughters and taught middle school, so I'm totally used to being interrupted, so don't worry about that. So we're going to talk about a lot of stuff today. We're going to talk about some updates that have happened recently, some decisions that were made around text messaging. Talk to you about that, some updates coming to the SchoolMessenger app. We'll look at what we call our new community engagement module, which is an add-on to our Communicate product, the notification service, which we can talk. We'll look at that. We have some new professional development, which you may find interesting for, it's targeted towards school principals and teachers to get them more equipped on doing some things effectively. We'll look at how now our notifications and websites talk to each other in terms of being able to post notifications. Website accessibility is still a big deal. How we can use and enhance student safety with our Safe Arrival product and Resource Central. And we'll obviously take it in any direction that you want to talk about. Does that sound good? Awesome. So one of the things you may not know or may have heard, or like, what does that mean? So we're not West anymore. So here's how we're structured. So SchoolMessenger is the education arm of a much larger company that everybody uses that nobody's ever heard of. That company, that large company, used to be called West, and West had been around since the 70s, and they started in the call center business, basically creating the technology that allowed call centers to do that job. They had expanded into a global brand and do all kinds of things. Like if you call into a customer support and you get so tell me what you're calling about. That's called that technology is called IVR, or instant voice recognition. West invented that technology and sold it to a bunch of people. But West also did and does runs 911 centers. So about 98% of the nation's and Canada's 911 services, if you dial 911, you're going through a West now Intrado system. Anyway, earlier this year, they decided to change their name to Intrado. And so what does that mean? It doesn't really mean anything. It doesn't mean we weren't sold, we weren't taken over, we're not going out of business. It's just simply a name and branding change. People ask, what does the dragonfly mean? We don't know. It's just what the CEO liked when the day they announced it, the purple and green and the dragonfly. So that name change officially changed on October the 14th, so just a couple days ago. So the emphasis is on more of the innovator in this global technology and communication space. I talked to you, I said earlier about largest company that everybody uses but nobody's ever heard of. So like reminders to go to a doctor's appointment or a dentist appointment, reminder to pick up a prescription. If you ever get a recall notice from Walmart or Costco or places like that, like that's all our company. Any kind of call center, that's our company. If you ever done a WebEx or a GoToMeeting or a Zoom, that's our company running that technology behind the scenes. So it's a big, huge thing. So that's where the focus is now. So how does it change? It doesn't. So we're all still, well, in terms of Craig and I, we still do SchoolMessenger. That's what we care about. The company, whatever it's called, we don't care because we're still SchoolMessenger. Okay. Any questions? Had you heard that? Had you heard we changed names? Had you heard that? Did you get all the letters and things like that? Yeah, it doesn't really mean anything. Just this stuff matters. The numbers and the tax side, all that stuff matters. But on the surface, none of it really. It's just a name change. So here's what's new with us. So there's some information and some new stuff around text messages. Are any of you doing texting?
Yes.
Okay. Yeah. So here's what happened. So there's this rule that's been around. There's this federal law that's been around for a while now called TCPA, Telephone Consumer Protection Act, and it does a lot of things. Well, it's supposed to do a lot of things, and one of those things is manage how companies like ours or any company can text people. And in order to do that, we have to follow SchoolMessenger a lot of rules around text messaging. Things like we have to get permission from the person who you want to text, that it's okay to text them. We have to make sure that we have that archived and cataloged somewhere. We have to get approval for messages that contain our short code to go out, so that we're not in violation of any other rules. So there was another company that was taking advantage of some of the loopholes in TCPA to send text messages. That company was Remind. The analogy that we like to use is, imagine SchoolMessenger is an airplane and your text messages are sitting in first class in the airplane. You've got the best service, the best way to get those messages from point A to point B. What Remind does with their text messages is they sneak into the airport, jump the fence, and climb in the cargo hold to get those messages from one place to another. We use a short code. So we use a 6-digit short code in order to get those messages. That means we have a higher level of service. We have a dedication we have agreements with all the carriers to make sure those messages are not treated as spam, nor would they ever be treated as spam. And we pay for that. But we don't pass that along to customers. What Remind does is they use texting in the way that texting was designed for handset to handset. So, for example, if you have an iPhone and you send a message to a phone number that doesn't have an iPhone, the message is green. That's a text to text. So that's a 10-digit number to a 10-digit number. That's what they use. So their numbers change all the time, which allows them to offer it for free. But they circumvented the process of having to get approval to send those text messages. What does all this mean? It means the FCC has ruled in our favor to allow us to do some things different with text messaging that frees up districts to do it a little more effectively. So in the past, when we were going to do text messaging, we had to do what was called double opt-in. we sent a message on your behalf to all those numbers, and then that person who received it had to opt in to that message by sending a message back. That we call that double opt-in. Well, now what we do is we can do what we call single opt-in. So what we can do is we can take all of the mobile numbers in your district and send them a message that says, hey, you're now opted into receiving text messages. If you want to opt out, then you have to press a button. That means there's a higher rate of opting in, because most people just say, oh yeah, I do want to be opted in. So that's what this means. But in order for us to do single opt-in, you have to have that record of that person wanting to be texted somewhere in your system. So that means it's on some kind of registration form, somebody has checked a box somewhere that by giving you their number, it's okay to text them. So rather than us gathering it through the texting, you're gathering it through your registration, which a lot of districts are doing now. If you're already doing texting, you've already done the opt-in, you don't have to do anything different. You can move to single opt-in if you want, and we can still honor the opt-ins that have already happened, but certainly if you do want to move to single opt-in, it makes it a little easier to get those numbers up of the people who are opting in. Questions about that? Does that make sense?
Any drawback?
Okay.
Like that at all?
What's that?
Any drawback to the single opt-in? Makes it a lot easier.
Yep.
So districts put it on a registration form, if you will.
Yep. We require that the opt-in be on file, and we require proof of that, because if you get sued, say somebody goes rogue and sues you, then guess who else gets sued? We do. So our attorneys make us have that proof, make you show us that proof. And again, a lot of districts are doing that. That's in some file somewhere, even if it's recorded on paper, that's fine, as long as we know that you've gotten that opt-in. So if you're already doing texting and you don't want to move to double opt-in, or you don't want to move to single opt-in, that's fine. If you want to, just make sure you have that opt-in on file, and then there has to be an explicit field for mobile numbers. It can be called whatever, mobile one, cell one, whatever it is, but we have to know where that field is. Those are the two caveats with that. So that's new. Questions about that? That one's kind of, I don't like talking about the legal stuff because I'm not a lawyer. Here's another thing that's pretty cool. So as part of that ruling, we got approval to do what we call prepending text messages. So now when you send a text message, it comes across on that short code. If you're not explicit in the body of the message as to who that message is from, it can be confusing. So now what we can do is we can prepend every text that goes out with 10 characters. It's actually 12 because there's a colon and a space, but up to 10 alphanumeric characters. So in my example here, if my district is called Springfield Unified School District, I can prepend every message that goes out with Spring USD, so that every text message that's sent would have that prepend.
Does that come into the number
It
of text?
does, but I'm going to show you something you can do. It does. It does count into that. So it would be, 160 minus, if you use all 12, so that's 148. So it does count against that. It also does apply to every message that is sent, whether it comes from the district or if your schools have the ability to send text messages to just their school, it would still say Spring USD because we use one short code. Otherwise, we could do multiple short codes for the district, one for the school, but that gets really super expensive and we don't want to pass along that cost. Okay? So that's the goal is to do that short codes once we can get that cost down. But right now it would go out to every person. How much does it cost to enable this? Nothing is free. Just let us know. Questions about that?
My guess is everybody pretty much wants that.
Yeah.
And I'm like, just email me. And then
Yeah, we just need to
online.
know. We just need to know what you
What you
want
want to say.
what you want those. It's up to 10 characters. It doesn't have to be 10 characters. We just need to know what you want it to be. And then we go in, put it in, and you're done. It goes out next time you send a text message. Yeah.
I'm trying to see if I can find any of our old text messages from our school, but there hasn't been a snow day in a long time. So would they have already had this pre-pen?
Probably not.
So do I need to tell my district that they need to?
That they have, you can tell they have this option,
Okay.
and then it's just a matter of letting,
HP schools with the,
Yeah,
isn't that one?
and do they already know this, do you think?
they probably don't, they may not.
Okay.
Yeah.
That could be useful.
So this has been around since February of this year. There was some communication about it, but again, who gets the communication, how does it go to, there's all those things that plan, they just didn't miss it. But this can be enabled at any time. It's just a matter of just letting us know what you want that pre-pen to be. And then the understanding that it goes out on, that can be confusing. I was just in Miami talking to a school district there, and their schools thought they were gonna get their own. Schools don't get their own. It's district-wide, no matter where the message is initiated from. They're all gonna have that short code, or that prepend. And that can sometimes be confusing for folks. School Messenger app. Anybody using School Messenger app? So just a review as to what School Messenger app
Is it
does.
the custom app or?
No, so this is the recipient, the ones that parents download, the one with the blue
Is it
icon.
still called Info Center?
This used to be called Info Center. Yeah, so this is the one we were talking about earlier this morning, right? So it does a couple, so if you're not using it, you have it as part of the service. It's completely free. It's an app on Android and Apple. It's also a website, go.schoolmessenger.com. And I'll show you later where we have tons of resources on how to get this up and running if you're not using it. But it does several things. One of the things that it does really super well is help parents manage their preferences. So in order for a parent to have an account, they just need to sign up. Email address, choose their password, just like they were registering for anything else, on the internet. And then what we do behind the scenes is look at the email address that they used and go through our entire database of 65 million users to find out where that email address exists and what students it's attached to. Then that's how we claim the students back with that email address. So it's critical that the email address matches whatever the parent uses here in the student information system. Well, let's say that there isn't a match. Parent decides, hey, I'm not going to tell the school my new email address because I don't want them emailing me all the time. That's fine. You can turn on something called claim by phone, so the system will come back and will say, hey, we didn't find anybody with that email address. Let's use a phone number. They put in a phone number, cell phone number, home phone number. As long as that phone number exists somewhere in the student information system, we can make the match. So they got to have at least an email address or a phone number attached to students. And that's how we make the match to students. But once they're in there, then they would get a record of every call that was made, or every email that was made, every text message that was sent. It would be kind of like a receipt. So not only would they get that text message in their texting app on their phone, they would get that same message in the app to be able to read later, to the phone call. Hey, I didn't listen to the phone call, whatever. I would have it in my inbox in my app. Okay. But the other thing it does really well is this manage preferences. And so what this allows them to do is take all of the different types of messages that you send and for the recipient to decide how they want to receive them. So I'll actually show you what this looks like in real time. So I'm going to sign in here. So I'm signing in like I was a parent. And one of the things I'll be able to do is manage my preferences. So here I can see all of the phone numbers and email addresses that are coming from the student information system. It could be phone 1, phone 2, email 1, email 2, whatever it is. Then beneath that, these are all the different message types that this particular district uses. So emergency, attendance, they use some other ones, fundraising, general, what have you. When I click on a category, You know, during an emergency call, we blast to everything, because you're telling everybody, hey, this is important, we really need to talk to you, so we're gonna send it to everything. Well, in a real world context, not every number, text message, email address needs to get blasted. So this gives the parent or the recipient the ability to choose which one of these do they want to get it on, and in what combination. So I've only selected one phone number, one email address, one text number for emergencies. And I can change this anytime. Well, I might have 3 phone numbers in the system. All 3 of them don't need to get the call. So I only have to select one in this case. And I can even come in and I can turn off different categories as well. I don't need the text message. I don't need the email. I'm going to get the phone call. Now, in the case of an emergency, if I try to turn it completely off, it's going to tell me, hey, I got to have at least a phone number in there for emergency. So it's not going to let them completely turn off that particular category. Turn this back on. So, and the same thing in the case of attendance. So if I try to turn off an attendance call, it's not going to let me. So they're still going to get their attendance calls, right? But if you look at something like a general, I've turned off my general category, which means my phone's not going to ring, I'm not going to get a text message, I'm not going to get an email. They'll still get the message though, yeah.
Is this linked to the student, or would like each guardian have a separate?
If you've got guardian data in place, then it would be each guardian.
Well,
Yeah.
I
And
don't
they
think
would
they
not
understand
see.
the dynamics behind guardian versus flat.
So flat data means that the student is the record
This is what you have now. This is what all of you have now.
versus guardian where there's actually 3 records. There's student, it could be 3 to 4. Student, parent or parents, and then a file to tie them together. And so this has the capability to support guardian data, where if you have a situation where there is a custody or whatever, the guardians would not see each other's contact information.
Okay.
Now, if they're happily married, everything's cool, really at that point it doesn't matter. They're still going to have an individual account.
But the decision to go one way or the other is district-wide.
Okay.
You can't say this family I want guardian, this
Right.
family I want flat. It's
Right.
all or nothing.
Right. But you see, in the case of the general, hey, there's a bake sale this weekend. Hey, don't forget to come to Fall Festival. I don't need my phone to ring for that. I've turned it all completely off. So I'm not going to get the email. I'm not going to get the text message. I'm not going to get the phone call. For me personally, for my 2 kids, I can tell you, my school district doesn't use SchoolMessenger, and it's a pain because every Sunday, our principal does the weekly message. He calls, and the call's like 3.5 minutes. I ain't listening to that, it's too long. Then I get the email, then I get the text message. I don't need all 3 of those. I need the email, because that's the one I'm gonna look at. And so in that, if I'd had this, or they had the capability to do this, I would just turn on the email address, and I would get that message. But I've turned this category off, but I'm still gonna get the message, because in my dashboard, I'm gonna be able to get the messages that were sent, whether it was an emergency, a phone, an emergency, an attendance, a general. This is my record of all of those calls. And even in here, if it had a voice call, I can listen to the voice call right here. I can look at what the text message said. I can read the email right here. I would also, if I had the app installed, I would get a push notification telling me that I have new messages that have been received. So, similar to getting a Facebook message or something like that, this is my inbox for all the messages that have been received. Okay? Questions about what it does? So, some updates. I'm just going to keep this like this. I won't be jumping in and out of this. So, some updates to this. As I said, we've got, all this is available on mobile as well. So parents who don't want to deal with the website, they can download mobile apps for this as well. If you decided to use our custom mobile apps, we can embed this directly inside of custom mobile apps. They only need one. This app also does end-to-end teacher-to-parent communications as well, and that's built in. So remember earlier we talked about Remind? A lot of districts are moving away from Remind for a variety of reasons. And so this is a service that could be used in lieu of that, that would give teachers the ability to create groups, to have parents join with a code to send messages to those parents, and I'll show you how that works. So, if I'm a teacher, okay, I teach 3rd grade, I'm going to create a group. And I'm going to call it Anderson's or let's choose something Stephen can spell. Anderson's 3rd grade. Create. So now I've created that. So then I would give my parents this code. Easy enough. That should be pretty similar to how Remind does things. So here's my Anderson's 3rd grade. Now as a parent, I would go to join groups, and I would simply drop in that code. And now when I hit join, once it catches up, now I'm a member of that group, which I can't join because I'm already a member. Somewhere in there. So now, as a teacher, I can come in and send a new message. And I can do that to any number of groups at the same time. If I want to send to my entire 3rd grade class, I can send to all of those people in that 3rd grade, which is just one, which is just me at this point. If I have the same message that I want to send to this 4th grade class, I can do that at the same time as well. So if I teach multiple subjects or I have multiple preps and I have the same message for everybody, I don't have to send it 2-3 times. I can do it in one message. I can also select individuals here, so I can do it just like I was doing an email. So if I start typing names, I can add those in. If I don't remember, I know the first name but not the last name, it works the same way, just like an email. So I can pick and choose who I want this message to go to, either as a whole class, or as individuals, or as different individuals from different classes. So it gives me a lot of flexibility to be able to send the message. When I go next, then I can type my message. Hope you are having a great week. Don't forget our field trip tomorrow. Dress warmly. I can even add an attachment. That could be, a reminder form. It could be an image. It could be, whatever document that I want them to fill out or to send back, or that I just want them to have. And then I'm gonna hit next. And then one last thing they can decide is, hey, because all these messages could be replied to, because you could have that back and forth interaction. Teacher needs to decide, how do I want people to interact with this message? Do I need it to be a 2-way conversation? Do I need it to be a 2-way conversation that I'm going to send it to a bunch of people, but I just want it to look like I sent it to one person, so it's kind of like a BCC option, blind carbon copy? Or do I not want anybody to respond to this, meaning the replies would be turned off? In this case, I'm just going to let everybody reply. And then to protect people's identity and information, we don't expose names in the thread. It would just be person 1, teacher 1, parent 1. Unless the teacher checks off that box. So the teacher would have to physically check that box in order to show the names of the recipients in the thread. I'm going to select it. And so then when I hit create, there's my message. Now everybody who's in that group is getting a push notification letting them know that they have a new message from Stephen's 3rd grade class. They can go into their app and reply to this message. We've set up a string because we've allowed for everybody to see each other's replies, and we've allowed everybody to respond to that. This same thing can be given to students as well. Students can have their own account. As long as they have an email address in the student information system, they can have an account as well. And they can join those groups as well. So I can show you one that I've got.
I have a quick question.
There's one that's got a string on it, yeah.
So the parents have to have installed an app first?
They either have to have the app, or they can use the go.schoolmessenger. If they don't have a mobile device, they can use it just on a laptop or a desktop through the web.
Go.schoolmessenger.com.
Correct. And I'm going to show you later today, we talked about Resource Central, where all of this rollout kit stuff is that has tons of information in it that you give to parents and things like that. But this is what a string looks like. So there's a message I sent, there's one I sent, another one, and then there's one that Marcus said. Teachers have the ability to delete messages. Oh, I spelled that wrong, I need to do that again. It would disappear from everybody's inbox, but we archive everything. So an archive would be available to the district to be able to see anything that's, as soon as it hits send, it's archived, and we archive it forever, including the attachments. And it's a searchable archive that administrators would have access to be able to see those back and forth in those strings. Questions about teacher messaging?
Is there a way to know what teachers have created an account on the admin side?
What teachers have created an account?
'Cause
I don't know that there's a report for that. That's a good idea, though.
if you have an expectation, your teacher must.
Yeah, I guess the only way would be if they created an account and sent a message, then they would be in the archive. That's really good. Nobody has ever asked that before. We could be able to tell based on their email address, but no one had ever brought that up. Yeah, there's reported, we have like number of app, like SchoolMessenger app usage. That is a report, but it just shows percentage of people who have created accounts based on total number of people in the database. It doesn't show who has done it. Let me take that back for feedback. That's a good idea, to expose that report, to know who parents and teachers. The assumption is that teachers would have an account, even if they had never logged into it, but to be able to see who it was. That's a good idea.
And with those teacher accounts, would that be something that you would have to set up individually, or would they just pull it from school tool?
It depends how you want to roll that out. So we offer service at the RIC that we can create rosters for you, which is import processing, and the rosters are pre-attached to the teachers, but they could also have the ability to create groups as well. Those would be some background conversations we have before implementation. And that would obviously would sync every night.
I would tell you the benefits of rosters, there's several. So one, there's nothing for the teacher to create. If I'm the third grade teacher and that's all I do is I just need this one group to be able to communicate with my parents in my third grade class, it's done. There's no codes, the parents are already joined. Parents don't have to join anything, it's done. And if a student leaves or you get a new student, that automatically updates. So every night it's pulling those rosters, so it automatically updates. And as she said, you can also give them the ability, you can either turn off the ability for them to create their own groups, we call those ad hoc groups, or you can allow them to create individual groups, which would then be code driven. So there's some benefit to it, especially on the uptake side of getting people to use the product, especially teachers who are resistant because they were already using Class Dojo or Remind or there's tons of other ones that their districts are using or teachers are using. This makes it a little easier. Look, all you have to do is you don't even have to create the account. You just have to sign in, and all your classes are already there, like high school. All your classes are already there. Parents are already joined. You just start communicating. What's dependent on is the parents, recipients, creating those accounts and signing in. Once they do, all their messages will be there, but it helps with the uptake a little bit. That's a great question. So some new things. So right now, with the way that the system is set up, we called this teacher-initiated messaging when this rolled out about 18 months ago, 2 years ago now. We called it teacher-initiated messaging. Because only teachers could start messages, and the thought process was when we talked to teachers about this kind of service, they didn't want parents to just be able to randomly send them messages whenever they wanted to, and so we didn't allow that, and we still to this day don't allow that. That a teacher, they can either respond to a string, or that teacher can just not use replies at all and just strictly be one way. Well, that doesn't really facilitate positive school-home communication. So one of the updates we're going to make that we're going to roll out is that if the teacher chooses to allow parents and or students to initiate messages back to them, it will be a district decision on whether or not they want to allow that. So it'll just be a checkbox, and once that's there, then everybody will have that little new message button to be able to send that. So I would only be able to, I, the parent, would only be able to send directly to the teacher. I, the student, would only be able to send directly to the teacher. I'm not going to be able to send to all of the parents in the class and all of the students in the class. It's a parent to teacher. That's it. So it makes it a little bit more open, but still closed enough where the parents aren't bugging each other. They can text and email, and they can do all those other things. The other thing is right now there's single group ownership, and so we were asked, hey, we would like to have somebody else who's not just who's an owner, but who can also manage this group, who could also be an admin, a teacher admin in this group. So maybe it's a coach and an assistant coach, or it's a team teachers. So we're going to roll out a feature to have multiple group ownership. So you'll have a teacher, and then it could be a moderator that would have the ability to set some group things. They would be able to remove users. So if it was a group that was created with a short code, you can remove users. That moderator would be able to do it, but they wouldn't be able to delete the group in whole. Only the group owner would be able to do that. So there's some safeguards there in place. And then the teacher would be able to set that on their own. You wouldn't have to go call support or do anything. The teacher can give that. It has already been asked, could you do that with students? Yeah, you could. So if you had a journalism class, this is my example, you had a teacher who was the person who was and the word escapes me right now, what that person's called, but the teacher is that person, and then you got kids who, maybe you have a student who is more in charge of the afternoon with the group, then that student can be given the rights to message and do those kinds of things as well. But again, all of it would be archived anyway, so. Questions about those? Let's move on to brand new stuff. So we have what we call our new enhanced community engagement bundle. So this is an add-on to Communicate, to the notifications product, and it does some really cool things. There's some really cool features in there that we'll actually be able to take a look at. So there's 4 things. So the first is a new newsletter tool, which I'm going to show you live. I've got it active. I'll show you what it looks like. Extended text messaging. We've got some new forms tools. And then we have a new outreach manager. And I'm going to show you each one of these 4 tools live today. The first one's the easiest one to understand. So with the engagement bundle, you get extended text messaging. And so what that means is, right now, out of the box, Communicate, you have 160 characters. Remember earlier we were talking about the prepend, and you asked, oh, does it take away? It does, but this is how you can get around that. So with the extended SMS, you get up to 320 characters. You can go higher if you want to, all the way up to, I think it's 1080 is the top. But anything after 320, you would buy it in blocks of 160. I can tell you right now, I don't have anybody over 320, because you're not writing an email. You got an email function in there. So it does give you a little more room to do that. So you can go higher than that. So then you can combine it with that prepend, and then you would have a lot more room in there. So instead of 148, then you would have, what is it, 308. So newsletters. Anybody use anything like third party, like Constant Contact or anything like that to do newsletters? Okay, so what this newsletter, so we've always had a feature built into Communicate called a stationery. Anybody familiar with stationery? Some people used it. You had to have you had to be a rocket scientist from NASA in order to be able to use it. It's too overly complex. You had to code it and all this stuff. So what we did is we have this new drag and drop newsletter creator built right into the email editor in Communicate that allows you to add in rich text, images, social media, videos. You can do some really cool things. I'm going to go into Communicate. I'm going to show you how this works so you can see. So in the email feature, you'll get a new button, once my message loads here, that says newsletters. Come on, Frank. So right now, the option is to create an empty newsletter. We have our web designers are designing some templates to put in here so that you'll have you can have a different starting point, just kind of similar how we do with stationery. We're going to start with an empty newsletter. And so this is what the plugin looks like. So here on the left-hand side is where my content's going to go. On the right-hand side, I've got some tools. And at this point, it's drag and drop. I can drag different content blocks over in order to create my newsletter. But one trick you can use is there's a rows feature which will put over different blocks. So you could use this rows feature to kind of create a template for you. So if I want to use this block, and then I'm going to use this block, I'm going to use this block, I'm going to use this block here. And so you can see I can drag these different blocks around and moving them in new places. I can delete these, I can duplicate them if I want to. I'm going to delete that one. But so you can use the rows feature to kind of give you a template kind of basic outline, right? So now I'm ready to go with some new content. If I want to, I've got the ability to change background color. So if I know the hexadecimal right off the top of my head, I can do that one. I can change my fonts. I can change the colors of my link. So there's, I've got a color picker, I've got all kinds of things here that I can choose from. But let's create some content. So I'm gonna put an image up here at the top. And the image manager that's built into this is attached to your profile. So you only have to upload an image one time. So if it's a logo or a header image that you want to use in every newsletter, you only have to upload it one time and then you can select it again. So I've already pre-uploaded these, so I'm just going to insert this into that image there. Once it's done, then I can drag it around if I want to change its location. If I decide that I would rather have it down there, but I'm going to use it as the header image. You can also, so you can see on this side here, I can change if I want this to I need to add alt text. If I want the user to click that image and have it go somewhere, I can add a link image right here. So if I can change it if I want it to open a web page, if I want it to send an email, make a call, send a text message, I can do all of that from a single image, which that's pretty cool. So if I want to click an image and have it send an email to me, I think that's a pretty cool feature. You can change, padding and all those typical things that you can do in an email. But I want to add some more content, so I'm going to come over here and I'm going to add some text. I'm going to do that right here, and then I can just start typing. Good afternoon. My name is Steven. I've got some other content that I can put in if I want to add in like a social media feed. I can do that here. This is going to give me the ability, I can change, what buttons I want here, how many of them I want, what color I want them. If I don't want say, I don't want to use LinkedIn right there, I can just delete it, or I can add a new icon. I can choose from multiple if I want to add a Snapchat or a Tumblr or some kind of share this somewhere. There are other icons in here as well. You can add your own icons in, which is pretty cool. But let's say I want this to go to my Twitter account. So I'm going to put that in there. Then I'm going to, maybe I want to add a video. So I'm going to do that right there. I've got a video URL right here. Put that in. So I'm going to do that. Here's my video URL. And I can choose to hide that if I'd rather hide it on desktop or mobile. Generally, you're not going to. And so that's going to load up my image. So a lot of different options to be able to do some newsletter features. So kind of out of the box, you start from scratch, every time, but some things that are coming with this are, we're gonna add in, like I said, our designers are working on templates, so we'll be able to add in, we'll have some good starting points, and you'll be able to customize backgrounds and things like that, which you can already do now without a template. The ability to share those templates, and then right now, if you want to, you send out this newsletter, there's no URL that's generated off of it, it just goes out as an email. In the next version, which is coming here pretty soon, it'll generate a URL that you can then put on your website. And then in the spring, we'll have subscription services. You'll be able to post something on your website, hey, subscribe to our newsletter. That would give community members the ability to subscribe to these. Because right now you're using just regular Communicate to send an email. So I'll show you what this looks like when I save that. So we'll let that send for a second, and I'll tell you when it comes in so we can see what it looks like. There's my phone call. What do you think about that?
That's pretty awesome.
Do you like that? Now ignore my inbox. It's going to be atrocious, but I can at least show you what it would look like from a parent perspective. Once this loads up here. I didn't say I got rid of my picture. There it is. So you see it looks just like the preview. I didn't add any padding to the lines or anything. That's why they're not there, just to help me organize the content. But you can see, it would come straight across, and like that Twitter image will take me straight out to my Twitter page. So you've got a lot of different things that you can do, inserting video and things like that with newsletters. Useful, not useful? You think so? Awesome. So that's the second thing this new module does. The third thing is forms and surveys. So inside Communicate, you've always had the ability to do a phone survey and take that same phone survey and deliver it as an email to have then users select buttons to be able to answer the questions. The phone survey, neither one of those options was used very often because there's a lot of setup involved, and then frankly a lot of people didn't know they existed. So we made form. Those options still exist. You can still send phone survey. You can still send email survey inside of Communicate. This is part of this add-on. Gives you again more of that drag and drop, a lot more customization, a lot more different look and feel. So you have a lot of control over the design of the form or the survey. They can be delivered. They're delivered via email or text message now. So that was something you couldn't do before. Tons of different types of questions, multiple choice, true, false, yes, no, Likert scales, all kinds of different things. And then some really clever reporting and being able to get data out is really clever in there as well. So a lot of, and I'll show you this live, so creating the forms, just drag and drop, so it's similar to what we looked at with the newsletter. And then you get a library to be able to reuse those over and over. So I've got a couple in here. I'm going to show you how to do one from scratch. So I'm going to give it a name. I'm just going to call it, let's say, band trip. Please fill out this form completely. I can set a start date and an end date. If I leave them blank, it's open now and open forever. If I set a start date, it will be active at that time, and then if I set a close date, obviously that's when no more responses will be allowed on those. You can track recipient submission, meaning that their information of who answered that survey will come across in the reporting. If you want it to be truly anonymous, then you leave that box unchecked. So if you were doing a questionnaire about, should we retain the services of our superintendent for the next 5 years, like a board survey or something like that. Maybe you want those to be anonymous, then you can just uncheck that in the background. The next one is only one submission per user. Obviously, if it's something you only want that to be filled out one time, you would leave that check by default. And then the last one is you can create a form, but then you can go in and disable it at any time, either before the time is up or at any time that you want to disable it. And then beneath that is if you want to enter in after they finish the form, like a confirmation, hey, thank you for filling out the form. If you have more information, email us, call us, do whatever. This is kind of gives them that post-form directions. Thanks for the info. And I can share this form with anyone, or I can share it with what are considered top-level users, which would be system admin or somebody who had that profile of being able to have it all. So you can create a little library that could go out to anybody. This one I'm just going to share with nobody. So I'm going to save. So now here's the beginnings of my form. Now that title heading and description, that's where I can fill in what I want my title to be. So field trip. Please fill this. I can change if how big I want it, how small I want it with, my headings and my body sizes. And then I can add in different types of content. So I can add in more text, a single line text, multiple text if I have like directions or information that I just want to appear at the top. I can do rich content, which gives me the ability to put in other things, links and video and all kinds of things. I can put in, line dividers if I want to section off my form. I can do multiple choice checks boxes, drop down, linear scale, have them enter a date or a time if I want there to be a date or time entry there. I can put in a page break so that, it takes them to page 2, because what this is setting us up for, the next iteration of this will be branching on forms. So with branching, if they answer one way, it will take them to another part of the survey. If they answer this way, it'll go this way. So that's what this page break, so that we're slowly adding in those features. But if I add like a checkboxes, label, that was what tells me in the data what this question is. Obviously the question will come across. Because the data can be exported and put anywhere. So sometimes you want those labels to say something for a particular data system, but you can really leave that blank. And then I'm just going to select, I'm going to say boxed lunch. And I'm going to say yes. No, I'm going to say ham, turkey, or I'm a vegan. I can reorganize these, drag and drop them around, change their order, delete them. If I want this vertical or horizontal, I can change this if I want if I want it on the left side, the right side, the bottom, the top. How do you want that reported back out? Do you want to offer any help text? Hey, this is what this question means. And you can also make these fields required so that if the user doesn't fill them out, obviously they won't be able to answer the form. Once I have that done, then I can go back and I can add another question. So maybe I want to do a linear scale. And this is where now I can duplicate these. I can delete them. I can drag them around, grab the handle and drag it, change the order of my survey. Once I'm done, save my form. And now I can go back and look at those settings, but you know what, I'm done with that. So here is my band trip form. It's active, and now I'm ready to send that. And so that happens back in Communicate. So remember we said we could send this as an email or a text message. So in the email editor and in the SMS option, there will be a new place to add a form link that we'll see. So here's my insert form link. I select my form, so here's all those forms. Here's that band trip form that I just created. Can you see that? Yeah. I'm going to do, I'll just select band trip. What do I want that link text to be called? I can call it anything, band trip form. Okay, so that gets inserted in the body of my email. Then if I go to my text, same thing. insert form link, band trip, insert. So it's gonna look kind of crazy, but that's gonna be the link to the form. From here, what happens, once that gets sent, is a token is created on our side. And what that means is each individual form, depending on how we set it up, whether you want it to be anonymous, whether you want to allow one response, that form link that we just inserted gets translated and put into a link that goes out to each individual user and gives them a random token, so that then whenever they fill it out, we know who they are. If it's set up as anonymous, then no token is generated. Everybody gets the same link. It doesn't matter at that point. But I should have just got that email. So here is that form. So here's what it would look like for an end user. So here's that form. I'm a vegan. I'm going to do a 1, submit. Thanks for the info. So that's what that would look like. I would also get that as a text message. That would do exactly the same thing. I just touch the link. It opens up in my on my device, and I can answer the questions there as well. Once I'm ready to look at information, now I can come in and I can view the responses. So here I've already got these responses. It took 5 seconds for that person. The average time to complete the form was 5 seconds. So we can record how long it takes somebody to complete that form, give it an average. I can look at the different questions and I can see how many people have answered each of the different questions. Even just at a glance, being able to see one person has answered vegan, accounting for 100% of the responses at this point. I can expand them all if I want to. From here, then I can look at individual responses. So in this case, I left it anonymous. I didn't check the box, so it just assigned me a random number. So I don't know. I can't tell who that is. I don't know who 59 is. There's no way for me to know who that person is. So it is truly anonymous. See when they submitted. See all of the all their entire form and everything that they clicked on. And then I can also download this as a CSV, so that when if I have got a lot of information that then I want to, maybe I want to do a pivot table, maybe I want to make my own pretty graphs. Here is all of the answers that they have. So this is where those labels and things come in, so I can see. So I would be able to download all of that. So it's pretty cool, that forms feature. You like it or not?
Yes.
Yeah. I love that thing. I think it's awesome.
Is there a different way that districts utilize that? For example, maybe field trip form?
Yeah, totally. There's no signature capture. So if it's something that you gotta have a signature on, there's no signature capture. But you would know who filled out the form, because if you unchecked the anonymous, if you track user, if you check that box that says track user submission, you would know who filled it out because it would be in the data. So that would go to their cell phone or would go to their personal email.
I'm thinking outside the box just a little
Sure.
bit. Would it work for things such as signing up for parent-teacher conferences?
So the way that would have to work is you could use the date and time field for that, and what this won't do is if somebody, let's say I've got from 5 to 7, this parent chooses 6:30, this parent chooses 6:30. It's not going to prevent them from choosing the same time, but I am going to see who got there first. So I can put in my form, if you want to guarantee your time, you need to fill this survey out ASAP. As the teacher or whoever, I would be able to go in and see, okay, Johnny's mom filled this out a minute ahead of Sally's mom. Johnny's mom gets the spot. Or I'm mad at Johnny's mom, I'm going to give it to Sally's, whatever. I would be able to see that. So it's not going to take away a response. That would be really awesome. Like that Doodle does. There's a program called Doodle that does do that. That would be really cool to do, but not to sell somebody else's product. But you would at least see who did it first. Yeah. Yeah, you could use it for all kinds of things. Like beginning of the year information that we sent home, like 30 pieces of paper, put it in a survey one time, blast it out to everybody, and now I can download it as a CSV, split it out. I can, sort my columns, split it out. I've got all that information right there. I can do tons of different things with it. And it comes through as an email or a text message. Other questions about that? The last one I can't show you because there's not much to show, but I can describe to you how this works. So imagine you had if I say the word IEP meeting, does everybody know what that means? Okay. So imagine you have a parent who has an IEP meeting. IEP meetings are serious. The parents need to be there, right? So the IEP meeting is scheduled. And so what this outreach manager will do is automatically contact that parent for confirmation of that meeting. It will do it on what we call a 741. So 7 days before the meeting, it will send them an email with the information of the appointment. This is who it is, this is where it is, this is what time you need to be there, any other information you want to put in. And we'll ask them to confirm the appointment by clicking a link, or or if they don't confirm, or they have to change that appointment or cancel, they click another link. If let's say they ignore that email, 4 days before, they'll get a text message, same information. Here's your appointment. It will actually open up a web page that has all the information on it. They can confirm or they can cancel. If at any point they confirm the appointment, it stops. So if they confirm it via the email, the appointment manager is done. It recognizes that they've confirmed. They're not going to get the text message, they're not going to get a phone call. They've confirmed that they're going to be there. If they ignore the email or the text message, a day before they're going to get a phone call. Phone call is going to tell them the details of the appointment. It's going to tell them all the same things, the email and all that stuff. It's going to tell them to press 1 to confirm, 2 to cancel, or 3 to be connected to the office. And then that number can go anywhere. So if it needs to go to the case manager or whoever to reschedule that appointment. Okay? So 731. So 7 days, 3 days, 1 day. And you could do this for anything. It doesn't have to be something just one-off. It could be, a college night where you want all your senior parents to be there and you want to know who's going to be there. We just load in all the details of the event, who it needs to go to, and then the outreach manager will collect all the people who have confirmed their attendance or who are not going to be there. So then you'll know who's going to be in attendance. You can use this for so many different things. This is a feature that we have on the healthcare side, because this is a healthcare feature. Hey, 7 days before your appointment. Hey, you have a doctor's appointment coming up in 7 days. You going to be there? You know how they do that? Then they send an email. Same feature. We just brought it over into education. So there's not a whole lot to show because this is like a concierge service that we offer, that you send us, if you subscribe to PCEM, the engagement module, and you want to use this piece of it, you send us all the information. We load it all up for you and send it and do all the sending for you. It's there. This you might have seen in my version, the reminders tab. I've got this reminders tab, but it can be a little daunting to kind of set this up, because you got to set up the fields where the data is coming from, which means that the data has to be physically uploaded into the upload manager in here, which is not very pretty. And if you don't have the right fields and you don't have the fields matched, then it can all go haywire. So we offer this as what did I say? Concierge service. You just send us you tell us who this needs to go to, or you send us the file, what is the message, and you say, we do it for you. So this is getting better. This is another thing that's getting improvement. We're going to put an upload manager here. We're going to make this a little more friendlier to do imports, and we're going to take away the having to fill out fields. Yeah.
So
So right now, if we want to use this reminding service.
Yeah.
Tell you do it for us.
Yes. Yes, because it's in healthcare. So we just basically took without getting overly technical, we took the technology that runs this in the back end of one of our healthcare products and just pasted it into Communicate. Well, in healthcare, the way that they do things is way different in education. Like the technical stuff that they need to send appointments, all of that information lives in what they call the patient management solution. It's kind of like a student information system, but it's for patients. The way those are built has a lot more detail into it, and things like really specific, like universal time you want things to go out, it's a mess. So that's why we say, hey, it's there. If you know what you're doing, there it is, but we'll do it for you, right? So this is one of those things that's getting better too as time goes by. This one gets an update all the time. Like I just got that reminders tab the other day. This used to live somewhere else that was hidden in the product. So those are the 4 things. I know I've made them sound great. Hey, we're improving it. But Craig has all the details on. The good thing about my job is I don't know how much anything costs.
That's how I feel too.
Yeah, that's awesome. That's why he's here. He can tell you.
Yeah, well, we just need to speak to you guys about it.
Yeah. But we've had the forms and the outreach manager and the extended texting for a while. Newsletters, we just that feature finally released a couple weeks ago. But it's all there. I mean, you get all of those features: the extended texting, the forms, the outreach manager, the newsletter feature. I think is the best thing in there. I mean, the ability to create those, and that is going to fast get a lot of new features. It's going to get that subscription ability. It's going to get the templates. It's going to get a ton of new things here as time progresses very quickly. Yeah.
Would I be able to use the newsletter feature and then just send a link to it through regular email? Just because not all of my parents will be signed in.
Yeah, that's the next version. Right now, it's just going to come across just like I showed you. But in the next one, it'll generate a URL for you that you would be able to do that.
Okay. Which, how long do you think till that?
I don't want to tell you. I can tell you
Like, is this
by
a 10-year plan? Or
no.
right
We're
now?
talking like within. We're like weeks,
Okay.
months away.
All right.
Probably more like months. Probably more like after January.
Okay.
Because if I tell you and then it doesn't happen, then I get in trouble.
Right.
Because I
And
told
we
you.
have you on video saying.
Right, I'm on video saying
We
it.
have them, we got them.
Right. I hate to commit and then because with software development, there's we've been ready to do newsletters. I probably shouldn't say this because I'm on video, but I'm going to anyway. We've been ready to do newsletters for weeks to roll that out, but our corporate overlords decided to stop all deployment of new development for a month to give people a break from having to work late at night. So no new stuff went out according to our parent company. So we were ready to go, but we just weren't allowed. So I don't want to tell you something and then say, oh, by the way, that's not going to happen that way. So I don't want to get in trouble. So we can edit all that stuff out later.
Yeah, Derek, you got this, right, buddy?
Yeah.
Okay.
Any other questions about premium engagement? Oh, this is what that looks like. This is what it would look like on email. So you got a cancel appointment, confirm appointment, and then all that confirmation would be reported. This is what it would look like. So you can have different messages. Hey, your appointment's been canceled. Call us here, email us. All that's customizable. Already been set. Thank you for confirming. So if they confirm again, it would tell them, hey, you already confirmed this, but if you need to change it, here you go, and so on and so forth. So, and that's all that way, that look and feel, customizable. We'll customize it for you. That's what those details look like. IVR, which is that like the phone call, will actually speak all the information for them and then connect them to the office and we talk about all that. Lots of different responses for that. Oh, that's the 731. We already talked about that. Do we want to take a break?
Yeah, and we've got food back there.
Okay.
So if you wanna eat.
Yeah. It's
Eric,
like
what is it, quarter
20 after 11.
So what do you think, about 15 minutes?
Yeah, why not?
Okay. Sounds good. Yeah, you switch
That's a lot. I still have like 80% more to go.
Good.
No. Lot of your districts, because I work with districts of all sizes. Like I said, I was just in Miami working with Miami-Dade. It's a huge school, just near 300 schools. They have a team, they have a communications team of 30 for that for that district. 30 people do their communications in Miami-Dade. So anything that the schools want to send, any message that goes out, anything, all runs through the communications department. If there's a lockdown at a school, it goes through the communications department. If there's something that is happening at dismissal that is going to prevent buses from rolling out of a school, it goes through the communications department. They have the capacity to do that. Well, guess what? Most districts don't. Nor do they have most of the communications that happen come from the administrative level, like a principal, an assistant principal. And so there's, especially now in the climate that we're in, with crisis and school safety, knowing how to communicate in those situations is critical. And we're not talking about things like if there's a lockdown and a shooting at a school. It's those one-off events that could happen that don't happen all the time, that don't happen every day, but that the principal is probably going to be the one who's going to be the point of contact. I'll give you an example. There's a district in Massachusetts that something like this happened to. Down the road from this huge high school, there was a construction happening, and right at the time the high school was dismissing, the construction crew hit a gas main and was venting gas all over the place. So they had to shut down the road, and there was one road into the school, and then they had to keep the school in lockdown because you couldn't let anybody out because they were afraid it was going to explode, right at dismissal time. And so the principal, fortunately, had been through this course on crisis communication, knew exactly what to tell parents, how to tell parents, knew how to handle things like if the media was calling, wanting to know what was going on, what was happening with the kids, all this, knew how to handle that, had a plan in place. So what our PD does, that's one aspect of what our PD does, but then there's the social media side, which we'll talk about later. But instead of these are online courses in an online format that are asynchronous, meaning not everybody has to be in the same room together. You can do it from anywhere, you can do it from any device, and it's self-paced. So if you want to do the whole thing in one day, it takes 6 hours, you can do the whole thing. If you want to take 6 weeks and do an hour a day, you can do that. But you don't have to take away from instructional time, you don't have to take away people's time, you don't have to get everybody in the same room. It really allows you to do some different things with that. So let me get my clicker here. Put it in my pocket. So anywhere, anytime, any device, you can do it on a tablet, do it on mobile, do it anywhere. It's all activity based, so the courses have like a video component that you'll watch, like in the crisis communication one, you'll actually watch a crisis unfold, an actual crisis unfold in real time, and how that was responded to. And the bad parts of the communication, but you also see the good parts, so you actually see it, and then you'll do some things with that. And if you use things like, if you use like Google Classroom or you have your own LMS, like we can plug into LMSs so that you can track it, so you don't even have to use the service. We can just dump the content all in there, all of that. So the first course is, oh, this was the video that I was going to, I won't show that. The first one is crisis communication. So the goal is to be able to answer the questions, how have you been affected in a crisis in the past? And again, we're not talking about like a school shooting. Like that's a really serious one-off event that is going to unfold very, very rapidly, that this is not the kind of thing that we're talking about. But the, road closure or something that's going to be different out of the ordinary. How did those communications go? Did you have a plan? Most schools don't even have a communications plan, let alone a crisis communications plan. There's generally one at the district level, but not really one for schools. And then how much confidence do you have in administrators' abilities to communicate effectively? So what this course does is it's designed for anyone who would have access to SchoolMessenger to send mass notifications. So it could be the principal, it could be someone at the district level, it could even be the superintendent, how they communicate in those crisis situations. So how do you prevent a crisis from escalating? Like the things to say or not say during a crisis so that parents don't, they feel, obviously there's always going to be those parents who say you never do anything enough, you never communicate enough, but so that you're giving out information so that you're keeping people updated, but you're not, you're trying to de-escalate the situation with parents. How do you keep people informed? How do you do follow-up communications, which are all important? So the course was created by two veterans in crisis communications. One is Rick Kaufman. Rick was immediately after the tragedy at Columbine happened in Colorado. Rick led Columbine, and that's Jeffco, Colorado, Jeffco schools. He led the entire response of their crisis communications after that event. He was the one in front of the media. He was the one creating the announcements. He was the one who was working on all of that communication with them. So he has real life experience of a terrible, terrible event, how he's leveraged that to help other districts. And then David Voss is another veteran in the communications field. He's got 30 years of experience, and he's another one who's helped create this. So some things that we'll do in the course, you will actually gauge your school's readiness to communicate to a crisis. So it'll pose some questions to you, and you'll have to rank based on what you'll learn in the course. Like before you get started, like what would you do first? Like, so do you know how to communicate in a crisis, basically, to gauge your understanding already? You'll be able to assemble a team and identify the key individuals. So it's all a team approach. Developing skills to effectively monitor and manage social media. How do you do follow-up activities? But part of the biggest piece of this professional development is you actually will develop a written plan as you go through to be able to revisit later. So not only are you getting the knowledge, but you're actually developing a plan as you go through this course. So there are specific tie-ins back to communicate as well. So how do you use different aspects of communicate that you can put into your communications plan? So it's not just you're going to learn this, how to create a communications plan and how to communicate in a crisis, but also how do you leverage the power of SchoolMessenger Communicate to do that more effectively. So there's specific information about creating message templates, which is what you may have seen me using today. The message is already created, the list is already created, you hit 3 buttons and boom, you're done. How do you use the Sender app? So that's the administrative app to be able to send messages from mobile, from anywhere. What are the best practices for using SchoolMessenger Communicate when sending messages in a crisis? So there's those specific tie-ins as well. So that's one course, is the crisis communication, designed for leadership and administrators who are sending mass notifications. Social media is designed for anybody, teacher, administrator, could be anybody who wants to know how to leverage social media to be better at it for school communications. So some things that will look like is, social media communications planning. What kind of engagement do you get from your presence? How comfortable do you feel managing your presence? How confident in you are you to use that? So it's for anyone who uses social media in their day-to-day role. So it could be a teacher who has a Twitter account. It could be for a PTA who's running the PTA Facebook page. It could be for a lot of different people. For people who want to promote the schools and districts, they may not be using social media because they've been afraid of it. Like, I don't know what to do. How do I do this? Where do I even start? All of that is there. So it's more than just a step 1, step 2, step 3. It's more of how do you use these services to the best to their full potential to engage your community. I think that's what a lot of especially teachers and administrators who want to use social media are looking for. So again, who's doing this? Well, David is part of that course, but I wrote the other half of the course. So my experience is I help districts write social media policy and board policy for social media in schools. I created the most popular education hashtag that's used on Twitter and Facebook and Instagram. It's called EdChat. I've got right at this point now, I've got almost 170,000 followers on Twitter. So this is something I help do all the time. So like Houston ISD, their social media policy and how they use social media, I wrote that for them. So you're getting the best. Well, I don't know the best of the best over here, but certainly with David. So what are some things that you do? How do you overcome fears for getting people to buy in to use social media? Like, how do you overcome some of the stigma related to social media? How do you create a policy and guidelines for best practices, which is important? How do you build an audience? So how do you get followers? How do you get people to follow your feeds and to interact with you? How do you respond appropriately to ugly or vulgar or things that may not be appropriate without escalating that in a public way? And then how do you measure your success in using social media? So again, it could be a classroom teacher, it could be a school district, it could be a school, it could be anybody. We also have tie-in. We have a product called K-12 Social, which helps manage social media, helps you understand your social media presence. So we have specific tie-ins to that product as well through analyzing your footprint and things like that. Here's what these courses look like. So each course, this is the crisis communication course. So 6 different modules. So are you ready? Get it now. Critical steps. And then within that course, it starts with a couple of videos and some activities that you'll have to do. Like here's, like in this one, how can preparing a short list help you to control your public message in a crisis situation? What types of items might you list? Or this one, this is a drag and drop of who is responsible for these different things that happen during a crisis. You would drag these over. Oh, this is the superintendent's responsibility. Oh, this. So it's understanding whose role and responsibility it is. So it's an interactive, it's not just a sit and get. You're actually having to do a lot of work to answer these questions. There's also built-in discussion. So if teams of people take this course together, there's a discussion board. It's private to your school or your district, so it's not just a big, wide, huge community of everybody taking these courses. It's just for you. But all of us who are the course creators are also in these message boards, so it's an opportunity to, like, Rick is in there all the time. So especially in the crisis stuff, he's made it his life mission to help schools communicate effectively in crisis. So you can actually interact directly with Rick and I and David in those in the message boards there. So SchoolMessenger.com/PD is where you can go to learn more. Craig has all the info on pricing. It's pretty flexible. I think it's pretty flexible from what I know.
It's by location, and as many staff can use it as you want.
Yeah, so I mean, if you want to do it for one school and you want to put 40 people in there, same one price. So unlimited users per location. Questions about PD? Yay or nay? Yeah. Is there other types of professional development you would like to see, either that you would like to see School Messenger offer? Is Is there things that you've talked about, heard about, thought about that you would think, gosh, I wish School Messenger taught us this? Think about it. Think about it. This was done as a response to a couple customers saying, I wish you had this. Y'all are experts in crisis communication. Help us be better communicators. So we created the courses. Same thing with social media. So if there's something like that, if you think about it, let us know. Did y'all of you have notifications, right? To communicate? Any of you use Presence, our website product? Okay, so here's a couple things with Presence. Well, here's one thing with Presence. So if you don't have Presence, now you'll want it. So now, what you have the ability to do if you have both is create this, which is an alert banner on your website. It's very easy to set up. It's just a phone call to us. This is created inside of Communicate. I'm going to show you where it's created, but it's one workflow. So now you're doing, the idea is, if you're going to put up an alert banner on your website, you're probably sending a phone call or an email or a text message as well. So you do it in one workflow. These can be controlled. You can control where they go, so which location you want it to go to. You can also control how long it stays up and when it comes down, when it goes up and when it goes down. But I'm going to show you how this is created. I'm just going to load up a message here. And so once all these hooks are made, so we have to make some hooks in the back end between the website and then who you want to give the ability to do this. So this is not everybody gets to be able to post a message to the website. It's just who needs to have it. Some work has to be done. So in the Posts tab, we'll have this Presence website alerts. And so, right now it's just emergency. The goal is it could be other types of notifications as well, but right now it's just any kind of message could go up there. You can select a start time. So I'm just going to have it, list for now. I can use the calendar. Here's my little clock. I can do that. And then I'm going to do an end date. So I'm just going to have it do an hour from now. Give it a title. School closed tomorrow. And then my message. School is closed tomorrow. Go have fun, be safe, whatever it says. Then I can select what locations I want it to go to. So, in a big announcement that you're going to send to everybody, you can select all your district site and then all your school sub-sites, or you can specifically target. So if I was the principal of the high school, I could be given access to this Presence website alert, but the only site I would see would be the high school site underneath me. So I could only So I could put up a banner on the high school site that said, don't forget SATs are this weekend or whatever. Don't forget to come to the big game or whatever it is. So you can pick and choose what sites you want it to go to, or if you want it to go to all of them. Then I'm going to click OK. And then once I send that broadcast, so now that message is going out. So there's my school closed message right there at the very top. It tells me it's new. I can't click anywhere else in this box. I can't do anything on the website, can't scroll, can't do anything until I physically minimize this, and then it goes into this alerts right here, which I can maximize at any time. Then you saw that I did it for these other schools. I'll log into one of these other schools. Here's that one on the school sub-site as well. So one workflow to do all that.
How do we get that turned on in?
Send you an email right now.
You send me an email, we'll get it set up for, my team will get it set up for you.
Because I do it manually through this site, but.
Yeah, and you can still do it manually through the site, but this will be one workflow. Yeah, just send me, it'll take me a day or two to get it set up. Just,
Should we automatically turn that on even for districts that aren't here right now, assuming that they want to?
So there's some work that has to be done. So you can turn it on, but it doesn't mean that it works, because what we have to do is we have to go into the back end of their website and generate a unique key. And then we take that key, we put it into their, into the ASP manager. Then they would get, if it's turned on, then they would get the ability. You can turn it on and it'll look like it works, but then on that screen where it had all those web pages, it won't say okay, because there's no, it needs that key from the website to know where to go.
I think the one person I was thinking of is Genevieve, and I think she might be online, so.
Yeah.
Genevieve, if you can hear me, just email me.
Yeah, just let us know, because anyone from my team can go in, rather than you having to go to support, we can do it fast. I can send a note to my guy in St. Louis and say, hey, do this for me, and he'll have it done. I just need to know who to give access to, and the name of the website. That's all I need, and we can turn it on. It's all profile. It's all controlled in the profile. So if there are other people associated with the profile, they'll see it, and they would be able to do it. So that's a consideration. So, yeah. Oh, that's free. That doesn't cost anything. Well, you have to have presence and communicate, so I guess it does cost something, but, yeah. Let's see. Oh, I always like to talk about since we're all communicate friends here. I always like to talk about the underutilized features of Communicate. And if you ever want a checkup call, meaning like you get on the phone with somebody from my team, Craig maybe, we're happy to do that. So we can do that, once a year or something like that. And what my team does is we go into your account, we pull all your data and show you how many phone calls did you send in the last year, how many emails, how many blocked numbers do you have that you may want to take a look at. And we show you how to generate all those reports, because a lot of people don't know how to generate it. Even though they're sitting there, it's just one of those things that they're sending the messages, and they probably learned how to do it, but they just get caught up in all the other things that are happening in school, and so they forget. But if you ever want us to do that, just reach out, and my guys can do that. Do that for you. But through all these checkup calls, these are the 10 things that we find are the most underutilized. Now you might be looking at that and say, we use all of those things. Awesome. I would love to hear some stories on that. But believe it or not, translation is an underutilized feature. So we do automatic language translation for all messages, phone, text, and email. So if you have specific language needs, it's just a matter of, it's two things. We just need to know what languages, and then if you want it to be automatic, we just need a language field sent to us nightly, tied back to a student record, and then that language those messages would automatically go out in that according to that language field. So if you've got Spanish or Arabic or Urdu or Swahili or whatever it is, we have about 40 languages text to speech. We have about 100 languages text to text. So pretty typical languages text to speech, obviously English, French, Spanish, Korean, Japanese. There's a bunch of them in there, and then the rest of them are text to text. So if you need translations, or even if it's for one student, like I've got some districts that have translation for just one family, that's totally fine. We just need to know who it is and just send it to us so we can update that.
You set that up, or we can do that?
You can turn on translation, but there's some magic that we have to take your home language field or preferred language field and apply a number to it that is the translation code on our side. It's easier if we set it up for you.
Just send me an email.
Yeah, it's easier if we do it. And then it automatically goes out in those languages. If you need to know the languages, I can send you a language list. If you just remind me, I can send you.
I usually look at our Utica's database.
Yeah.
They have like 54.
I'm sure it's a lot, yeah. We talked earlier about the survey tool, so allows you to do phone and email surveys. So that's built in. We already talked about forms and all that stuff. Like that's an add-on, but surveys is always there. Allows you to create phone surveys. So for example, you can do a phone survey where you actually have to tell the user what you want them to do. So, do you want the superintendent to get a raise? Press 1 for yes, press 2 for no. And then they would physically press that button. You would have to know what the question was and what the answer was. So that's why it was a little convoluted. So it does work for simple things like that. You can get up to 9 responses off it because there's 9 touch tones on a phone. And you can also allow for an open-ended question, which is where they can just, it's kind of like a voicemail, they can just speak, press, I think it's press 0 to give us additional feedback. They press 0, record their message, and it's in there. So that exists. And I'm going to show you where you can learn more about how to use these here in a second. Enhanced email, what that means is stationary. So the stationary, which we talked about earlier, does have some of those newsletter templates built in that you can customize. You don't need to know HTML in order to customize them, but it helps because they're much easier to customize if you know HTML. But we do have walkthrough on stationary and again I'll show you where that is. Texting we already talked about. It all seems like you all do that. You can send to social media and RSS, so you can send to as many Twitter accounts as you want and as many Facebook pages as you want. And if you send a message to Facebook, it can now include a photo. So you can upload a photo directly and communicate, send to Facebook. You just have to be an admin on that Facebook page in order to send to it. And again, that can all be controlled through the profile. So if you've got users you don't want to be able to send to social media, you don't have to. The other part of that is RSS feed. So if you don't use Presence, if you use another product for websites, you can still send notifications to your website through an RSS feed.
Is RSS feed more robust?
It is not more robust, no. RSS is it's called really simple, some people call it service or syndication, but it's really old technology. The generator for it is ugly. It's an ugly box. I would not put it on a modern website. You can take the actual RSS feed, the .rss, and put it into your own, but it's still going to come across as really super ugly because RSS is just ugly because it's simple. It's just text is all it is. Desktop alerts. Have y'all heard of this? I'm about to blow your mind. So desktop alerts it might be tough to see, up here in my toolbar, right there. So desktop alerts it gets installed on your local machine. So PC or Mac, there's no Chromebook version, PC or Mac, and it's basically listening for notifications to come through. And when it hears one, it pops up on the screen like this. It looks like this. And so it doesn't matter where I am in the building, in the district, as long as my computer's connected to the internet, this would pop up on my screen to let me know that this is happening, whatever it is. So what the districts who really use this well are using it for things like this. Technical announcements. It could be, you just want to push it up on teachers' devices to let them know that the faculty meeting's been canceled. So rather than using the all call feature over the intercom and disrupting instruction, you can push this up on the screen. And these can be targeted. So basically how this works is it's a program that just has an area for RSS feeds. So you can create RSS feeds for each location. And then it's just listening for notifications to go out on those RSS feeds. This box can be customized. You can customize the color, the logo, the size. You can make it turn on when the computer turns on and not allowed to be turned off, so it's completely controlled. We package it up for you and send it to you so it can be auto-deployed. So if there's deployment software, you don't have to touch every machine to do it. It's packaged in a way. In a Windows environment, it's an MSI file. In Apple, it's a JSON file that can be auto-deployed. So we set all that up for you. This is just a phone call. Hey, I want to get desktop alerts going. So I've seen it used for this. I've seen the lockdown announcements and things like that. Most of the districts that use it are larger and spread out, but it could work anywhere. It could be great for like a central office or a place where you don't necessarily have good phone coverage or intercom coverage or things like that. I guess you could put it on student devices if they're Windows or Mac. You could put it on student device if there was something you want to send messages to students if you didn't have anything else to do that. But that's free. You can just turn that on anytime. Just let us know. Questions about that one?
The other thing I would say is I'd be careful on looking for messages you relate, because if you're on a smart TV,
Yep.
kids are gonna see it.
Yep. So, and some districts have gone to like code words like, hey, it's a code bunny, which really means like shooter in the building or whatever, so kids don't get scared. But if the kids know that, then obviously they'll be able to see that. But it could be good for, because it can flash anywhere. It can go up and it could be anything. It could be just, most of it, like I was just in Cypress Fairbanks, which is a huge district outside Houston. And they are doing this now, and there's only 3 people in the district who can send one. They're only using it for district communications, and they have a very specific list of criteria in order to get a message to be approved to be sent on desktop alerts. Those are the districts that do it really well, because they're using it for something that they need to get everybody's attention, but they don't necessarily need to disrupt the instructional process. Like, hey, the email's down, phones are down, they'll use it for severe weather, like there's this, the entire district's now under a severe thunderstorm warning, please, shelter in place or whatever it is. Those kinds of things that you just need to get everybody's attention on because it does flash up on the screen. Quick Tip is our tool that allows you to anonymously report incidents. So it looks like this. So it's a little form. Select the school, select the incident. This list is customizable by you at the district. So while this is what I have, yours could look completely different. You could use it for any number of things. I could say, Carl hit me on the bus. He is me. And I could put in any kind of file, image, video, anything I wanted to. And then I have optional contact information that I can put in. Once I hit submit, that message goes out to whoever is identified in SchoolMessenger as a quick tip recipient. So it could be the principal, it could be a resource officer, it could be an assistant principal, whomever it is, would get an email telling them that they have a new quick tip, here's what the tip says. So they don't even have to come into SchoolMessenger to see it. From there, broadcasts, tips. So here is that tip right here, and tells me the school, what the topic is, the date it came in, and then if there was any contact information. So it keeps a record of all of those tips. So I'm looking at it from a district administrator perspective, so I can see everything, but the schools would only be able to see theirs. But it is, if you don't have anything already in place for reporting things like that, it could be you've got something there if you wanted to use it. It's just a URL that you add quick tip to the end of it. In fact, all of yours are probably active right now. You just never used it. But you can go in and customize that anywhere under the admin tab, under settings. Here's my topic manager. So this is where I can edit those topics and add, and I can put in as many as I want, or as few as I want. And I can also manage what schools are visible. If I only want it to be for certain schools or certain locations, I can hide, and this is all built off of the data that's sent to us. So you've got that available to you as well. Questions about Quick Tip? Sender App, you know about the Sender App? I touched on this really super briefly earlier. So the Sender App is an app that you download from from Google or Apple Store, and sign in with your credentials, and then you can send messages from your mobile device. Easy. Super easy. You can do phone call, text message, email. You have to have lists already created. So if you've got lists already created, you're ready to go. You can set up messages like a message template so that you have to press 2 buttons and your message would go out. So great for if you need to, if you just have a canned message for lockdown, a canned message for something else, weather or whatever, you can do that. But the setup on that is a little It's multiple steps. I'm going to show you a guide that'll actually walk through, rather than walking it through with you, I'm going to show you a guide where you can actually go step by step here in a second. School Messenger app, we already talked about. Resource Central. Y'all know about Resource Central? Do you know Resource Central doesn't require a username and password anymore? That's nice. I don't think it's nice, but the company seems to think it's nice. I would prefer to have a username and password. But anyway, so Resource Central is our hub where you learn about everything School Messenger. So all of these documents and things, I'm going to show you where all of them live. Up at the top, across the top, you see where it says, it has all the names of the products. So Communicate, Presence, Mobile, Other, Webinars. So if I have questions about Communicate, I can go under the Communicate tab, and I've got guides, I've got videos, I've got live trainings. So underneath Communicate guides is everything you ever need to know about School Messenger Communicate. So if you want to know, like, hey, we just did a feature release on 10.4. What was in that feature release? Well, we have a document for it that we've already posted, so it walks you through everything that's there. Getting started guide. So if you've got new users, so if you hire a new principal, or you hire somebody new to send notifications, this is where you can send them, or you can send them to download all of these guides. So here's a quick start user for the quick start guide, which basically is about 4 steps of how to send yourself a broadcast to get used to sending a message, step by step in the product. Where do you click? What do you do? Where do you go to send those? If you want to know how to, let's see, somebody was asking about lists earlier. I think I have one in here. I know there's one in the Getting Started, but there's also more, like here's how to create a survey. We talked about earlier about surveys. There's the survey guide. How to configure an RSS feed. You've got that. Enable or disable repeating broadcasts. So if you want to do a repeating broadcast that happens, that's triggered based off some information that you send us, you've got that. How to manage block lists. So if you have a parent who calls and says, I'm not getting phone calls anymore, where do you go to figure out what happened? That's what that block list will walk you through the process of how to do. How to post to an RSS, how to create a user account if you're doing that. The rest of those are more technical. Like tips for effective communications, tips for sending effective messages, survey tips. If you want to know more about TCPA, we have tons of TCPA information. The Sender app, so here's the Sender app guide. So if you use an iOS device, here's how you get started, here's how you send a message, here's how you sign in, how you create a message for, that you can send, sending a saved message. Tells you where to go in Communicate to set that up so that it comes over to the app. So you've got all of that. You can even view reports inside the app as well. So a lot of information, how to send a broadcast, all of that as well. You've also got training videos. So this is an archive of all the training videos. So again, if you have a new user, you can send them here. Here's how you get started, step by step by step by step by step. What do you do in each step? The teacher-initiated messaging. So if you want to roll out that teacher communication piece, there's a ton of videos right there on how to roll that out, that training, because the training is pretty self-explanatory. I'm going to show you another place to go to, but you've got tons of those videos right there. If you want full-length Communicate end-user, end-to-end training, we have one of those as well. If you want to do live training, you can come in and take live training anytime. There's no cost for live training. Anybody can do it anytime. Here you want to do new user, if you want to, best practices. Here's that one on lists. So if you want to create lists, here's that. If you want tips for severe weather, you've got that as well. You just sign up for those that you want to take. Same thing for Presence. So if you're using Presence, same kind of guides there. Under mobile is where all the School Messenger App stuff is. So here's all the walkthrough guides for School Messenger App. This app toolkit is the one to download for getting fully started with the app. It's got everything you could possibly need in the in there. It's got templates for letters home or templates for emails to let people know where do you go to download, how do you get started. I'm pretty sure there's videos in here too. You've got all kinds of different documents, editable documents. Like here's a FAQ guide. So how do I get signed up? What is it? What am I going to do? How can I download? How do I use this? Where do I go to learn more? So the product itself has tons of help already built in. So just pointing people out. Well, if you like our PDF, awesome, you've got that. But right beneath it, you've got the full Word document to be able to edit that and add in your own content if you want to. So you've got those available to you. So if you want to take off our logo and add your own, cool, there you go. You can do that. We've already made that for you. We have videos built into the product, so that's a great one to show to get started. And there's multiple languages. There's English and Spanish in there as well. We've got the What's New guide, so you've got that as well. Other webinars, so training we already looked at. We do professional development webinars, so we've got a full archive from the last year. So if you want, like we'll talk about accessibility monitoring here in a second. We've got a full webinar on that. All those FCC updates, all that texting I talked about earlier, we brought in our corporate attorneys and then made them use plain language to explain it to people. It's the funniest thing to watch lawyers try to tell people something in plain English. It's just worth the laugh trying to watch it. But we did a webinar with one of the parents of a victim of Sandy Hook, and she talked about her experience during that, mostly related to how the school communicated to her what was happening. Very emotional, very moving, but very powerful of everything that they did right, but everything they did wrong too. So that was a good one to watch. Lessons learned from a school shooting. This is from a district in New Mexico, so we have that as well. So a lot of professional development webinars that you've got right there built into the product, and you can also get to support as well. You need to contact support. Questions about Resource Central? Helpful or no? Give it that link, resourcecentral.schoolmessenger.com. Anybody can use it because it doesn't require a username and password anymore. So anybody can use that. You want to talk about safe arrival? Craig? Do we want to talk about safe arrival?
I don't think so, because we still can't write back to school tool.
Okay.
That was the holdup, right?
Working on it. I know that.
Brenda, didn't you mention that?
Yeah.
Not the safe arrival, not writing back to.
Well, we don't have any tools really, we're not aware of that go back into school.
No, that's what I
Usually
mean.
one way,
That's.
stay down.
Who owns School Tool?
Mine does.
Okay.
We're right in Rochester.
Okay. Yeah.
But yeah, if we can get that right back, I think a lot of districts would be interested.
Yeah. I know the order of the plan of write back, but yeah, you're exactly right. So we'll skip that one. Website accessibility. Now, I talked earlier about our website product, but this you don't have. What I'm gonna talk to you is just about general, just accessibility. It's not product related. You don't have to be a School Messenger user of our website at all. Obviously, Craig and I would love for you to use our website product, but you don't have to in order to take advantage of accessibility. So we now have a tool that you can use to ensure website accessibility. But I think it's important to have a conversation about accessibility. Is this something that you've heard about or hearing about? Maintaining an accessible website? Is this something that you've experienced, heard about? All right, so here's the deal behind this. Yeah, I bet you have. Yeah. All right, so here's the deal behind this. So everybody knows, has everybody heard of the Americans with Disabilities Act? So there's inside, the ADA is this huge law that applies to lots of different things. Applies to like physical buildings, so any new physical building has to have, accessible entrances, and like that's where you started seeing press a button to automatically open a door and ramps and all those things. That's one part of the ADA. There's another title under ADA, it's Title III, that covers telecommunications. Well, guess what falls under telecommunications? Websites. So what the ADA did is it told the U.S. Department of Education to say, look, you need to come up with some standards for website accessibility. And for a lot of years, they didn't do that. They just kind of sat on it. So it was no big, so schools didn't care. It wasn't anything that was on anybody's mind. Then all of a sudden, the U.S. Department of Ed said, look, if you want to continue to receive federal funding, which most public schools in the country accept some kind of federal funding for school lunches or anything, then you have to make your website accessible. And it has to be held to what we call the WCAG 2.0 AA standard. That's just it's a Worldwide Consortium for Accessibility. They have these standards. You don't need to know what those are. And if you don't, then we'll come after you and we'll sue you. Okay? That still didn't scare people. So then there was a woman, she lived in Michigan, who made it her life's mission to sue school districts or to file complaints against school districts with the Office of Civil Rights at the U.S. Department of Education. And all of a sudden we start seeing all these school districts get these very harsh, nasty letters from OCR saying, your website is in violation of the Americans with Disability Act, your federal funding is at risk, we need to come up with a mitigation plan. Mitigation plans can be very expensive. So, point is, the goal is that now we live in a climate where, hey, your website has to be accessible to anybody, whether it's somebody in the school or could be just a random community member. They have the right to be able to access your website by federal law, by whatever tools they need to be able to access your website, screen reader, keyboard control, all different types of things. So that's why this is a conversation now. So there's three different aspects to website accessibility. It applies to the entire site, it applies to any content on the site. For schools, it goes further into things like the products that students use have to be accessible. I'm not an expert in that, so I can't speak to that. But with the website, there's three different things that we have to consider. The platform, which means the technology behind the website, the design of the website, and the content all have to be accessible. So with the platform, that means that the website's built in such a way that it allows for someone to hit the tab key on the keyboard and move around the website. Or it's built in such a way that a screen reader, if someone uses a third-party screen reader, which is just a piece of technology that actually begins at the top of a web page and reads the content on the screen to someone who's visually impaired, that the website is built for that. Okay? Design, what that means is that consideration has been made for things like no flashing graphics, because flashing graphics are covered under ADA because it can trigger someone who is susceptible to seizures. Appropriate color contrasting. So you have to have colors that appropriately contrast, because someone who has a visual impairment or who is colorblind or has color sensitivity, they may not be able to discern like where a link is on a page. So if I have a blue link and a red background, that's not an appropriate contrast because someone with a color blindness can't see that link. So all of that has to be taken into consideration. The last one is the physical content that goes in to the website. So all the stuff that gets typed in, uploaded, images, links, all those things. Of these three things, who do you think is responsible for what? So who's responsible for the platform? The vendor, right? Me. Well, not me, but the vendor, right? Design. Who's responsible for that? Who do you think? Vendor. We're responsible for giving you a design that's appropriate. If you come to us and say, I want blue text on a red background, it's our job to say, don't do that. And make that impossible for you to do. Which we do. User-generated content, who's responsible for that? Y'all, right? So, again, this is regardless of whether you use our website or not, those are things to consider. So, the platform is our responsibility to make sure that the product that we give you adheres to these standards, right? So it should be built with accessibility in mind. It should automatically be keyboard accessible. It should do things with the technology to make it easier for someone who's using an adaptive technology in order to be able to use that, to use it. Content creators and website administrators shouldn't have to follow convoluted steps in order to create content that's accessible, right? So that's our responsibility to give you that product. Another one is the design. So the design shouldn't impede the user from comfortably navigating, non-flashing graphics, ability, so like, anybody have a rotating banner on your website? Like rotating image gallery? If you don't have a pause button, your website's already out of compliance, because you have to have a pause button. And not only should you have a pause button, but when you mouse over it, it should stop. It shouldn't scroll until you move your mouse. Like that kind of stuff, that's our responsibility to make sure that happens. And in Presence, we do that. Those are just a handful of the things. What districts get knocked for is the user-generated content, the stuff that goes in the website. So it's important to have people who are doing content creation understand what is accessibility and what goes into that. So what are the hardest things? So these are some of the things that break accessibility. So fonts are a big one. Did you know that there's a font standard that districts should follow when they create content on their website? Did you know that? There are certain fonts that are not appropriate for website use. Comic Sans is one of them. I know people love Comic Sans, especially teachers, but Comic Sans is good for students who have dyslexia. It is not good for people who are using a screen reader, because what the screen reader is doing is looking for equal distance spacing between the letters so it knows what the word is. Comic Sans doesn't have equal spacing, nor does Garamond. So having fonts that are what we call serif fonts or sans serif fonts, like Arial, Trebuchet, Georgia, Times New Roman. So one of the things that vendors can do to make it easier for content creators to make sure they have the appropriate fonts is to only give them accessible fonts. Well, we do that in Presence. We also allow you to lock it down as well. Another one, PDFs. Any of you have PDFs on your website? Yeah, so PDFs are the #1 way that schools get knocked for accessibility, because a PDF, yeah, it's great for the web, not accessible, unless you take certain steps to make that PDF accessible. So especially PDFs that have tables or images in them, they are definitely not accessible. So understanding and perhaps using less PDFs is the way to go. Now granted, I know there are rules in each state that certain things have to be posted and how they have to be posted, and it's certainly important to take those into account. But like the regular, classroom teacher or whoever, if they're using PDFs, the best thing to do is not use a PDF and convert it to HTML, which is easily done using Microsoft Word or Adobe Acrobat, because then you can just copy that HTML on your website. Then you're not having to worry about making a PDF, which is a static document, contain all this accessibility information. So avoiding PDF use altogether. But I will tell you, if you have full versions of Adobe Acrobat, or now Microsoft Word, when you go to save as a PDF, it tells, do you want to do this PDF for accessibility for the web, or do you want to do this for printing, best for printing? If you choose accessibility, it will walk you through how to make that document accessible inside Microsoft Word before you even save it as a PDF. But you have to have the most recent version of Microsoft Word in order to do that, or you have to use Word Online to do that. Another one, videos. Did you know any video that you put on your website has to have closed captioning on it? And that closed captioning should be at a 90 or 85% accuracy. Should. That's what the recommendation is. There is no standard yet. But, so if you've got board meetings, teacher puts a flip video up there, got to have closed captioning, and you have to post a script as well. Because the script has to be able to be downloadable. Because if I'm visually impaired and I'm hearing impaired and I still want to take advantage of the video, I got to be able to. I can use a Braille device that sits in the bottom of my keyboard. It's a Braille device that I can use to download the script and then have that device converted to Braille so that I can still read it if I'm hearing impaired. I know it's an extreme example, but those people out there exist and should have an accessible website as well. So you have to have closed captioning and scripts. If you're using things like YouTube and Vimeo, guess what? Got to have them anyway. You still have to have closed captioning. Those two services will do auto closed captioning for you, but just make sure you watch them and read them to make sure. Now, I know it seems daunting. Hey, I've got a 2-hour board meeting that I have to do closed captioning on. Yep, it's still got to be closed captioned. So just take that into consideration. So what are the features of an accessible website? I don't know why there's an empty slide there. So it follows a logical linear format. So it doesn't bounce all over, content doesn't go all over the page, top to bottom, left to right, right? Avoid using descriptive links and headings. Like don't use the words like click here for more information, because if I'm blind, where is here? If the screen reader comes to it, and it says click here, and I'm blind, where is here? I don't know where here is. Like you're telling me on the page that it's here, but I can't see it. I don't know where it is. Now, granted, some screen readers will actually do the link clicking for it, but it's not a good idea to use click here. Making sure that you're using like descriptive links. Making sure we'll talk about alt text in a minute. Keyboard navigation, it may be tough to see. Oh, it might not even be moving, but the best way to do it is to go to your website and start hitting the tab key. If you can hit the tab key and get what we call skip navigation, where you can hit the tab key and move around your website and then hit the enter key in order to activate a link, then you've got keyboard accessibility, which our present sites do automatically. But that's a good idea to make sure you do that. Alt text. So every image that goes on your website has to have what we call descriptive alternative text. So again, it's for someone who's visually impaired. When the screen reader comes to that image, it tells them what it's an image of. So that's required for every image that's non-decorative. So a decorative image might be, like a banner graphic that's just, the school color or something like that, doesn't need alt text. And that's coded differently in the system and in the website than a graphic that's uploaded. So I have to make sure that I put in alt text. Well, in Presence, we require alt text for every image. You can't upload or save an image until you add alt text to it. So it's a safeguard that we have in place. Tables, it's best to avoid tables altogether, because tables have to have headers and labels in everything. Every row, every column, every box has to have a label. And if you've got a big giant table, that's a lot of information to fill in. So we require that information in our table wizard, but it's best to just avoid tables altogether. Text equivalent, so that's the alt text. It's required for images and URLs. So people who use voice recognition software use voice commands or the elements text to activate it or access it. Oh, my sister's calling me. Well, she'll have to wait. People with mobility impairment can click an on-screen label to focus on form fields that are properly labeled. Alt text, so it has to have three things. So meaningful, the alt must just successfully describe the image. So that picture I had of me a second ago, so if I just said portrait, it doesn't tell the user what it's a portrait of. It has to be descriptive. So if it says Steven Anderson headshot, that tells the person what that is a picture of. So like a picture of a student throwing a football, is it at a game? Is it at recess? Is it after school? Or if it just says football, it's not descriptive enough. So it's important to have that descriptive information. Decoratives, alt must be set to null, which we do that. Actionable, it must describe the purpose of the element. So, are you doing anything to mitigate accessibility? Have this even come up in conversation at all? Or is this the first time you've heard this? Is this yeah?
I mean, I can say, running the web services for our districts, we have had districts that have had the complaints filed against them, where we've had to go in and run accessibility scrubbers and go through, check all the boxes and make sure everything's adhering to accessibility.
Yeah, it can be daunting. I mean, I've got districts who they're still in like year 3 of mitigation because they're trying to get it right. So it can be expensive depending on what OCR comes back and says they want you to do, depending on what the complaint was. Sometimes they're an easy fix. Sometimes there are districts that I know of that they're forced to actually create a position called accessibility officer. And the OCR can force you to create a position that you now have to figure out how to fund in order to put that in. It's a very low likelihood. It's a very one-off situation, but it's important to know. So we have website accessibility monitoring. So it's an add-on product. You do not have to use our website solution at all. You can use whatever website solution you want to in order to use this. So this is good for anybody. But what it does is help you monitor and mitigate those accessibility issues, in addition to a lot of other things it does as well. But we'll show you how much of your website is in compliance, and then where the website is not in compliance, and give suggestions on how to fix. So if it's missing alt text, or if the decorative images aren't set to null, it will show you on the page where those things are and how to mitigate those. So it's good at the district domain level to be able to see all the schools and how they all go together. But not only does it do accessibility, but will tell you broken links, broken images, misspelled words, reading levels, all of those things as well. You can easily see those on the dashboard. So you can go into actually one page at a time and see page by page what are there broken links on that page? What's the accessibility on that page? There's even search engine optimization, which for some people is a big deal. You've got that built in. When was the page created? Who last did everything? You've got all that information in there as well. But the accessibility checker provides you with that ongoing monitoring. So once a week, this will scroll your website and look for anything new that's an issue. Now, what this tool tests for, there's about 160 different items that it looks for out of like 170. So it's the most out of the WCAG standards, it's the most comprehensive tool to look at all these issues. There are some things that just cannot say whether it's accessible or not. It's a judgment call. And it will tell you which ones those are. And then you can tell it to ignore those items, and it won't look for those, and it won't report on those anymore. So it's a really super customizable to be able to do that. So you can get that information straight to your inbox. Will let you know, hey, this new content's created. It's not accessible. Here's where it is. Here's how to fix it. So you get a lot of information. You can do PDF tracking. There's also now an optional tool that you can add on. So there's an option for the option to fix PDFs that already exist on your website in mass. So that's available. And then if any new PDFs are added, then it will tell you that if they're accessible or not. There's also a tool, I can show you how this works because I've got it on our website. So we have this tool that you can put on your website now. So you see in the lower right-hand corner, I've got that little circle with the little person in it. So this is a tool that you could put on your website and would go on any page that allows someone to customize their experience of your website without actually changing your website. They're just changing their view of it. So I can open the personalized view, and so this will then simplify the page. So basically strips out all the design elements of the website. So I'm looking at just the images and the text and the links. I can make the font bigger. I can change the theme. So if depending on what I want that theme to be, I can change colors on it, change fonts on it, because some fonts for different users are easier to read. Believe it or not, this is a font for dyslexics, like Comic Sans. And so then once I do that, then I can use the website, and then wherever I navigate, all those personalizations will follow me wherever I go in the website. Can also look at just the site menu. So for some users, it may be easier for them to get to where they want to go through the site menu by just clicking the different links. I can do keyboard navigation, so it will show me exactly how to navigate this with a keyboard. How do I open different things? I can also look at the information on it's called Page Assist. So that's something that can be added there as well. I have links for all those things. Questions about that? Yeah.
Is this something that comes with everything, or is it an addition?
Add-on.
An add-on.
Yeah.
It's basically dependent on how many web pages and how many documents from the website. I'm not sure if MORIC had their own contract there.
I don't think we do it
Is
at the
Muncie
moment, but
done
it's not to say we can't.
Yeah, you should probably revisit them. I
Yeah.
think it's a few years old. We've
Yeah.
got a few more things to offer now.
Yeah, absolutely.
You said you had Presence, right? Anybody else have Presence, our website solution?
Yeah.
Okay.
Well,
you
I mean,
do.
the Rick does, yeah.
You do,
Right, so I wanna, so the rest of what I have is just Presence, so it's probably not, and it's like, there's nothing else, it's just Presence, like, there's some stuff that I wanna show you. So, but it doesn't, if nobody else has it, then, you know, it doesn't make sense for everybody else to, unless they want to, but
If you wanna stay green, you do that. The Presence is the website.
is our website solution. I've got some new stuff that's rolling out that I think a lot of people will be excited about. Questions for me? Anything you want to ask about SchoolMessenger? So listen, so a couple things before you go. Make sure, and then we'll talk about Presence. Make sure you check out Resource Central. Make sure you check out Resource Central. Make sure if you, like with anything with like teacher messaging or anything like that, should they let you know? So let them know if you want to do teacher messaging. If you're interested in any of those other things, should they let you know? And then she'll let
Everything
you know.
goes from Brenda. Everything.
Everything.
So everything goes through you. Yeah, awesome.
And Mike, who's not.
Yeah. Yeah, if you have any questions, you know, she's really good about getting them over to me and, you know, getting them answered and all that. So don't be a stranger. Ask us whatever you want to ask us anytime, okay? Y'all are awesome. Thank you. Let's talk about, you want to talk about Presence real quick?
Yeah.
All right, so I got some new stuff for you. All right, so here's what's happened recently. So tons of work on the back end, tons and tons of work. So one of the things is moving databases from, was it was it SQL 2003 to 2012, something like that. So moving, upending the back-end databases, which doesn't mean anything for you, makes our lives a lot easier. That alert banner we looked at, that's brand new. The text editor got a huge update. I don't know if you noticed that, but the inline editor got a big update. The UIs are getting updated, so the new calendar, have you seen the new calendar? So that's kind of where the UI is going, so we're doing it in bits and pieces. That What's New app, that's where when you sign in for the first time after something changes, you get a big box that actually walks you through what those changes are. So there's been a lot that's happening behind the scenes, but there's even more now. So one of the things, why does that say May? Oh, because that's what, this is out now, actually. This shouldn't say May. I pulled it from another deck, can you tell? This is actually available now. So what this means is, so we enhance the way that that items get shared through social media. This was a back-end change that we made to what we did is we instituted what are called OG tags, and OG tags are what social media sites use to generate content in them. So this is an example of one in Facebook. And so when you take a link, I don't know if you've ever noticed, but if you take a link or URL and you paste it into Facebook, Facebook auto-generates an image and some teaser text just like it does here. Well, all that information has to come from somewhere. Like Facebook's not going out and scrolling the site and trying to figure that out. It comes from this back end, what are called OG tags. So we've gone in and we've made these changes to every page and every new page and all the content, that anytime you share a page, it pulls the title, the name, and pulls a description. We do that automatically on the site. You can change the description by going into the page properties and adding your own if you want to, but this makes social sharing a lot easier when you just paste a link in, and that works on any social media service. Because I pulled these from other decks. This is out now. I don't know if you've seen the new banner portlet. Have you seen this? I'm trying to think if I have it on I don't think I have it on my website, but, so, you know, the banner portlet, the big, you know, the rotating banner, so we've changed the way it worked in the back end. So before, when you went into, to change out the banner, it was like just a list of the images, and then you had to click add new image, and you could only add like one at a time, and there was very few things that you could change on the portlet itself. So this is more in line with, kind of the direction that we're going with the UI, but now you can mass upload images into the banner portlet, And then you can edit each one in the actual portlet. So you can crop them and change them however you want to inside the portlet. You can go automatically add, instead of going to like a properties tab, you can now just add alt text directly next to the image, so it makes that a lot easier. If you want that image to do something when you click it, set your settings, doing all your slideshow settings, how do you want it to look, all those things you do right there in the portlet. Very nice, very, very nice.
That's default now? Because-
That should be default. If not, just call.
Okay.
But that should be default. I think I don't know if I have it on mine.
I've done a couple in the last week and that's not,
See,
mine's still the old list.
I don't run a site in production, so, because there's stuff in here that has not yet been released that I test, and so I don't know that I have that new before them or not. Let's see if I have it. You go to my page and see if I have it. So it's called Carousel.
So, okay, and I do have that.
Yeah, it's
I'm looking at
exactly the same as the
main
other.
banner on my site, the main header, which is called banners.
Yeah, so that one is still,
That's still
because of the way that design has to be, that one still is in the old one.
Okay.
That's why, because of where it is in the header of the page, it has to be in that old one. But Carousel is what the new photo gallery is called. Yeah, that's what that new one is called. There, that's where you can see where that alt text is going. So this is something that I can tell you too. So, you know how when you upload an image into the image manager, like when you're just editing content, you're typing content, and you hit the photo button in the inline editor, to put in alt text, you have to switch to that properties tab. That properties tab's going away, it's going to this. I can't tell you when, but it's gonna go to this, so that it makes it easier to do that. All the uploaders are getting a facelift, that alt text is getting easier. Line breaks are gonna be configurable. So some other things that we're doing, and this is brand new stuff, I haven't told anybody this yet. One of the things that's getting ready to come is a brand new Facebook UI, share UI. So when you create content, you'll have the ability to share immediately to a Facebook editor, like right underneath the content. I wish I had a picture of it because it looks really awesome, but that's going to be built in. With the goal is it's not just going to be Facebook, it's going to be all social media. You can do all social media now through embedded buttons, but this is going to be a much better, nicer little, you'll be able to write your Facebook post right here in the editor, which is really cool. Visual form builder, so right now you can do your website name /form, and you can do the kind of the convoluted forms editor thing. So we looked at the forms editor earlier in Communicate. We're bringing that into Present. So you'll have that kind of drag and drop visual form creator, which is going to make creating forms a whole lot nicer. Right now, one of the things that we're reviewing, if you promise not to tell anybody, and I know it's being recorded, so this isn't happening, but no, I'm just kidding. No, this is fine. We're looking at some things of being able to actually put an accessibility checker directly in the editor. So as someone is creating content, it will tell them if it's out of compliance, the text or the image, like right there in the product, rather than having to also ideally you would use it in addition to the monitor, but like there's certain things that are really hard to get a grasp on, like headers have to be certain sizes, and you can't go over certain sizes, so all of those things, all that will be, so this is kind of what we're taking a look at as part of my project right now, is to look at that. What else needs work? Like you use it, you deal with it every day, what else do we need to work on?
I have one. Go ahead. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
So I have 5 sites.
Okay.
4 schools in
Yep.
the district. And I don't know if there is a way, but when I post a news story to the district site, I want it to be on whatever building site
Yep.
that is relevant to.
Yep.
And right now I don't.
Yep, call, we can do that.
Okay.
Yep, that's possible. In fact, I can show you what it looks like, because I have that in my sites. So if I go to news, news, article. So what we would do is we would add this part right here,
Yep.
where it says schools, and then I can select the locations where I want that article to go. And then we just have to tweak each of those home pages with a hidden portlet, or change the news portlet that's on those sites to, it's called the advanced data display, or the advanced data editor, to be able to, it's listening for those articles. They would still listen to their own. So there's a little bit of configuration that has to go in, because we have to create that list, and then we have to do the editing on home pages. It's not, there's no charge for that. It just takes some time to get it done. But that feature does already exist. It just has to be turned on.
Okay. So I need to go through you and
Yeah, let us know.
I'd like to do that, so.
Yeah.
It's not, it just, the news portlet has to be coded with the names of the schools. It sounds crazy, but we do all of that. We'll do all of that. What else?
I figured because you can do it with calendars and
Yeah.
that.
That's another thing that's on the roadmap to change, to make that process a little nicer, cleaner.
Okay.
Yeah. What else?
I would like to be able to customize layouts more, so I know there's kind of like, whatever, 5 or 6 options, but inevitably, I want a different one. And so I just do the help chat, and then people always help,
Yeah.
but if I could customize that, do a
Okay.
little more dragging and dropping, that would be
Okay.
more efficient for me.
So you mean you want to be able to change, like, here,
Yes.
these types?
Right, so
And
that's.
instead of doing custom, like, you have to put in, like, this,
Yeah,
that
no, thanks.
CSS you have to put in
Nope.
there.
No,
Yeah, no,
not
that's
gonna
too
happen.
scary. Okay.
Oh.
All right, no, that's fair, that's fair. Yeah, to be able to just kind of maybe take some of those examples and then just be able to drag and draw. I'd rather have this box be here and this,
Well, like right now, I'm setting up a page and I have to do a chat to make it look the way I want it, because I
Gotcha.
want it kind of like the one right to the left of the one you selected.
this one right here.
Yeah, kind of like that one,
Uh-huh.
but I actually want it like number 2 and 3. I want number 2 to be like 2/3 of the page and 3 to be 1/3
Gotcha.
of the page.
Okay,
And I kind of have it set, but
yeah,
it's not
okay.
right, so.
All right, no, that's good. What do you think, baby?
Not really. A lot of my stuff is like personal preference stuff. That has nothing to do with developer functionality. It's more of like, oh, I wish you could do this, but it's not really like an enhancement. It's just more of the complicated processes. Like the hierarchy stuff, I still just love the fact that it would be drilled into a certain spot instead of just building in the spot.
Gotcha.
You know what I mean? It's like little things like that, and it's incredible. So
Okay.
I'll spare you.
Totally fine.
So we use Google as our sign-on,
Mhm.
single sign-on, and
Yeah.
which is very helpful. But I haven't figured out why when a user leaves and that user is removed, it doesn't remove that person from, sometimes from the, like the
From
staff
the groups,
directory,
yeah.
or even from, as a user from the site.
So that should happen. That's supposed to happen.
That's what I thought, but I mean, my laptop's just about dead, but if I looked at our staff directory, I know that there are people on there. And even when I go in and like manually delete them, sometimes they reappear, it syncs again in the hour, so, but I just can't figure out why it's doing that, and it's not
See, that would be
every user.
that'd be a tier
it's-
2.
Yeah. And it's good, like, it's not, now is your Google tied to your AD? So
Are they-
so
they
making
would-
the changes in the AD?
Drives Google, drives
So are they coming out of Google or are they coming out of AD?
Google.
So they probably need to
So
come
it's
out of
probably
AD.
resyncing with AD.
It's resyncing with AD.
So Google's syncing with AD, and then Google's syncing with school desk.
Mhm.
So even though you're taking them on a Google, as soon as AD and Google resync, that user.
Because you can deactivate,
It's gonna put-
you can deactivate a user in AD, which means they wouldn't sync back to Google. they wouldn't sync back to the website, but they would still be, like, I had to do that a lot, like, because if I totally removed them out of my AD, it removed their mailbox and everything, and by law, I had to keep stuff for anybody that left for a year, so I always just had to inactivate them. Whereas, so they wouldn't sync to anything, they would disappear out of directories, they wouldn't be able to log in, they wouldn't be able to do anything, and that was where I had to do that. So it may be that they just need to come out of, they just need to be inactivated, deactivated in AD, so that they don't go
No,
to
that,
Google.
that does happen,
Okay,
because when I inactivate them in AD, that inactivates them in Google,
Mhm.
and I would presume inactivates them.
it should deactivate them here.
Presence, but.
Now, with the stat, okay, so then we need to take a look and figure out what that,
Yeah.
so, staff directories, there's a couple things. So that can be driven off of that. Staff directories are typically built out of the groups feature.
Right.
And so we need to make sure that there's a couple things. So we need to make sure that the user wasn't added individually to the staff directory itself. Probably not.
Nope.
It happens very rarely. We need to make sure that, typically when they're removed out of Google, they're removed out of us, which pulls them out of the group. That would probably solve all of that. I'm not sure why they would still appear.
So Google, it suspends them, and I
Yeah.
don't know if that,
And
it
that,
doesn't really remove them, it just suspends them, but
But it still should be removed.
they're not an active group.
Yeah.
yeah, especially if they were suspended, then they wouldn't be syncing.
Right.
I mean,
Unless
there's
there's,
from other
unless there's
things.
something in AD that's forcing.
I don't know.
Yeah.
I didn't.
Have to look at it.
I had there much smarter people than me that work on
Yeah.
that stuff. I know enough to get me in trouble. Yeah, just we need to have, like, I can have, Trevor not on my team, on the presence team. He's really good at that stuff.
Okay.
To deep dive, to kind of, but we have to see, it'd probably be a call to see what's going on. Yeah. But if you just you can let me know, I can work on that one directly. You don't even need to put in a ticket on that one.
Perfect.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah.
I like that.
Well, I mean, you just send it to me and then I just farm it out to people. That's all. I'm just a gatekeeper. That's all I am.
If I get stuff done.
And then I look really good to you because you sent it to me and then I tell you, hey, here's what happened. But it's really, I didn't do anything. I just send it to
Okay.
other people.
Fine.
That's what leaders do, right? Anything else you can think of? If not, it's cool if you think about it later. Yeah, presence is my project right now, meaning that I'm looking at all aspects of the product to look at 6 months, a year, 18 months, 2 years, where are we going, what we're going to do. So it helps to hear some of those things. So that's good. I mean, you got anything else?
No, I don't think so.
This was awesome. I guess Craig left. He didn't even say bye. That's all right. I'll see him in 2 weeks when I go to New York. So, thank you. Thanks for coming. I appreciate it. Yeah, this is great. I love coming and talking about this stuff and getting people updated. And I mean, there's a lot of things that people just don't know, and so it's good to come in just to hear. And, yeah.
We might get feedback